So I am, I always feel like this particular holiday is a good time for us to look at our hopes, to look at our fears, and to do some of that work of transformation, of turning our fears uh, into not just hope, but the energy that we need to make that hope into a reality. So, I want to begin by saying that I am right now on the land of the Kashaya Pomo, the hereditary lands. The Kashaya are a people who have tended this land very carefully and elegantly for tens of thousands of years, with fire and with many, many other tools and understandings, and with spiritual work that helped the land to thrive, so that when European settlers first arrived here, they didn't even recognize that it was tended. They saw it as a beautiful, incredibly rich, abundant garden, um, but they had no real understanding of the work that goes in to maintaining the beauty and the diversity of those ecosystems. I want to encourage you all to honor the people that are um, the indigenous people of the land that you're on. You know, if you're in the US or North America, I think we are kind of becoming accustomed to doing this, or Australia. If you're watching this from Europe, you know, that may work differently where you are. Sometimes the indigenous people there are like several thousand years and multiple invasions and colonizations back at the beginning of time. But whatever it is, maybe just take a moment and honor that everywhere there have been people who lived in connection with the earth and honored the earth. And if you like, you could put that into the chat, um, which I believe is should be open. So it's my hope that being here and doing this work that we do here, I can be a good guest on this land, and I can take up some of that responsibility for helping to honor and care for and tend the land. Uh, Charles, I don't know if the chat is open for everyone, but
It is open. It should be able to be used by everybody.
okay, good. Ah, good, I see. Wonderful. It's always wonderful to see where people are coming from and to connect with the history and the legacy of the indigenous people. I also want to acknowledge that, you know, the indigenous people are not gone. They're still here. The Gashaya are still here. And that just as there's a legacy of stolen land, there's also a legacy of stolen labor, of other kinds of inequalities and oppression. And again, it's my hope that as we do this work together, we can be building toward a world of greater justice and greater equity, and healing some of those wounds of the past. All right, so as I said, my intention for this ritual is to help us look at our hopes and fears, and to transform some of those fears into hope and the energy we need to make change. And I hope that's an intention that we can all support. I'm seeing lots of interesting places from East Coast to Ireland, to many different places around the world. So welcome to everybody. So we always begin our rituals with a grounding, with a meditation to help us connect to the earth. So I want to invite you to settle your body, wriggle your bottom a little bit, and um, take a deep breath. As you breathe in and breathe out, just imagine yourself for a moment like a tree with roots going down into the earth. As you breathe in and breathe out, feel those roots push down through the living soil, down through the waters held under the earth, down through layers of rock and gravel, all the way down into that core of fire at the heart of the earth, that molten lava that's still hot there from the Earth's formation. And just take a breath. If you want to release and let go of anything, you can just take a breath and let it go into that fire. And maybe let it go with a sound. Ah. Maybe one more time. Ah. And just to feel that fire, take it, transform it. And now imagine you could breathe some of that energy up, that living fire from the heart of the earth, up through your magic roots. It's a fire that doesn't burn you, but it energizes you. It's like radiant power coming up through all those deep layers of bedrock and gravel, through water and soil, up into your feet and legs, up into the base of your spine, your belly, up into your heart. And just take a moment and just bathe your heart. I think all of our hearts can probably use a little something right now with that radiant energy. And then breathe it up and out the top of your head like branches and feel it sweep up and reach down to touch the earth again. And feel the sunlight on your leaves and branches. Draw that sunlight in. Take it in, feed on it. You're just like a tree feeds on energy. Breathe it in, breathe it down. Down to your heart, down through your belly, down through your legs and feet, into the earth. And take in a deep breath. Just feel that energy flow all the way up and through you and down and through you. And blessed be. And now that we are grounded, we're going to create our circle. If we were here in person, we always create a circle. Sometimes we draw out the boundaries. It's like we turn any space we're in into a sacred space. And now we're in this strange between the world space that spans the world and spans time zones and different countries. It's not like being in the same physical space, but it is being in the same spiritual space. So maybe take a moment and first imagine like a little circle of light around the room or the sacred grove or wherever you are right now, that temple. And maybe imagine you could take a little thread of that energy, kind of wind it up. And when I say three, we're going to toss it up into the air. 1, 2, 3. And feel that, like this little thread of light spinning up there, looking around, finding the other little threads of light that span the globe and linking up, connecting up, so that they weave a kind of web above us, surrounding us. And take a breath and imagine that web forming like a dome over the virtual space that we're in, and our circle is cast. And having cast our circle, now we like to call in the 4 elements and the 4 directions. Air, fire, water, earth, and then the 5th, which is spirit. So, because Lammas or Lughnasad is really about a time of harvest. It's like the beginning, the first harvest. It's not like the full harvest where some stuff is ripe, other stuff is just beginning to get ripe. Here where I am, we have apples are just starting to fall off the tree, but you bite into them and they're still pretty bitter. They're not really quite ripe yet. The early plums are done. The late plums are still hard as rocks. It's a kind of interesting between time, which is why I always feel so connected to both hope and fear. But I'd like to call in sort of the harvest of the 4 elements. So starting with air, taking a breath and thinking about air as breath, as wind, but also as mind, as concepts, as ideas. As you look back at this growing season, are there ideas? Are there concepts? Are there new things that you've learned? Have you exercised your mind? Has there been a moment where you've gone, I never understood that before? Or, oh, that's a piece of history I didn't know. Let's take a breath and honor that illumination that comes from the air and say, welcome, air. Thank you, air. And now thinking about fire. See my little glow of a candle there. I lit it beforehand because I always do these rituals and I have a candle. I never remember to light it during the ritual. The thing about fire is energy, and as passion, as courage. And what have we harvested from fire in this last season? How has your energy been? Have you done anything that has energized you, that has awakened your passion, your courage? Fire is also, something that is both tremendously dangerous here where we are on the West Coast, but also a great builder of community. And over this last season in my community, we have done a tremendous amount of work in the woods, in the forests, on our homes to make it more safe for fire. So maybe take a breath and honor those qualities of fire. It can warm us, it can draw us together, It can destroy. But we say, welcome, fire. Thank you, fire. Water. You know, water is sacred. Water is life. Water is what sustains us. And water is also connected to emotion. If you take a breath, I like to think again about this last season. Is there anything you have harvested emotionally? Oh, have you fallen in love? Have you given love, received love? Have you had emotional storms and come through them? Have you done anything, experienced anything that deepened your wells of compassion and connection? Let's say, welcome, water. Thank you, water. And earth. Here's one of those not quite ripe apples. Earth that sustains us, that grows our food, that holds us close to the body of the planet with her love, which we call gravity. What have you harvested in the earth from material reality? You know, are there projects you've completed? Are there things you've built? Is there a garden you've grown? Are there new enterprises you've started? Are there ideas you've made manifest? Take a breath and let's say, welcome, Earth. Thank you, Earth. And spirit, that intangible thing that connects us all. I have my goddess image shaker. You may have something else to represent spirit. But just take a breath and think about this growing season and what have we harvested of the spirit? You know, have you had a moment of that feeling of deep awe and reverence, maybe in connection with nature, maybe in relationship with another person? Is there something that has delighted you, that has inspired you? Maybe it's a poem, a work of art, something you've read, or a song that you've heard. Is there something you have done? Is there action you've taken that aligns your spirit with your values, with your goals, with your ideals? I say, welcome, Spirit. Thank you, Spirit. So now we have our elements, and I would like to invite in now an aspect of the goddess, of the deity, of those overarching forces of creation, death, decay, regeneration. And to do that, I have a passage from something I wrote many years ago in my book called The Fifth Sacred Thing, where it really opens with a ceremony for Lammas right at this time of year. And this is the invocation of the Reaper. Este es el tiempo de la segadora, the time of the Reaper. She who is the end inherent in the beginning, scythe to the grain. The crone, goddess of harvest. In this, her season, we celebrate the ancient feast of the Celtic sun god Lugh, his wake as he ages and descends into autumn. It is a time of sweet corn, ripening tomatoes, the bean drying on the vine. The harvest begins. We reap what we have sown. The crone, the reaper, is not an easy goddess to love. She's not the nurturing mother, not the maiden, light and free, not shiny like the new or crescent moon. She is the dark moon, what you don't get away with, the wind that whips the spark across the fire line. Chance, you could say, or what's scarier still, the intersection of chance with choices and actions made before. The brush that is tinder dry from decades of drought, the warming of the Earth's climate that sends the storms away north, the hole in the ozone layer. Not punishment, not even justice, but consequence. This moon brings a time of hope and danger, fire season. We watch the dry hills anxiously, knowing that the rains are still weeks or months away. We hope for a harvest, we pray for rain, but nothing is certain. We say that the harvest will only be abundant if the crops are shared, that the rains will not come unless water is conserved and shared and respected. We believe that we can continue to live and thrive only if we care for one another. We are part of the earth, part of the air, the fire and the water, as we are part of one another. Blessed be. And since this is Lughnasad, a celebration of Lugh, who is one of the ancient Celtic gods of Ireland, the Tuatha Dé Danann, the ancient people that we sometimes think of as the fairy people, or they're more almost like the divas, the land spirits of Ireland and the Celtic lands. And for those of you who are from Ireland, just take my apology if I am pronouncing things wrong. I'm doing my best with that. There are many, many stories about Lugh, but we often think of him. He was known as Lugh of the Long Hand in some places, and I think of that as like the long rays of the sun. And he's in some ways almost like the Celtic Apollo. He was the master of all the arts and all the crafts. So this is a song for Lugh that was written by a dear friend, Raven Moonshadow, who was one of our early members of reclaiming our spiritual community network, you could say. Raven passed many years ago, but we still sing this song. Oh, tell me why, oh, tell me why, tell me why must the clouds come to darken the sky? Oh, tell me why, oh, tell me why, tell me why must the clouds come to darken the sky? This is the wake of Lugh, the Sun King. He lost his life on Solstice Day. This is the wake of Lugh, the Sun King. He steps into the dark to guide the way. Oh, tell me why. Oh, tell me why. Tell me why must the clouds come to darken the sky? Oh, tell me why. Oh, tell me why. Tell me why must the clouds come to darken the sky? Welcome, Lugh. Welcome to all the arts, to all the knowledge, to that great solar fire that energizes the world. Blessed be. So as I said, Lammas or Lughnasad. Lammas comes from an ancient word lof mas or loaf mass, and was connected with the bread and the baking of the sacred loaf and the sacred bread. as the grain harvest begins to come in. And again, I think of it as that time of fear and hope. So I'd like to begin by just taking a moment to acknowledge our fears. So in the materials we sent out about this, I suggested you have some art supplies near you. So now it's time to go get them. Or if you miss that and you don't have them, if you can just grab anything you can write with and some sort of sheet of paper. And just take a minute now and I'd like you to just take a breath. And for just a moment, acknowledge what a frightening time we live in. We've called in the elements and the things that we have harvested from each of them. But each of them also carries with it right now risk and danger and fear. With climate change, we feel the air getting hotter and hotter, and I know some of you are just baking in unexpected heat. We see fires raging in places that have never felt forest fires before. And here in places like California, where fire is meant to be part of this land, it has raged so many places out of control. We felt the waters rising, and we know maybe some of you are in areas right now that are suffering from floods or drought as the waters and the rains disappear and the balance is disturbed. And we can feel the earth herself losing vitality, losing fertility. And when we think about spirit, you know, in many of our lands there is a spirit of hate that's rampaging. A kind of toxic spirit of both victimization and entitlement and from those who have the most privilege. And there's real fear around what that is going to mean and how that might keep us from being able to do what we can do to heal the climate and the earth. We've seen some of the basic rights that we have had for decades to make choices about our own bodies. We've seen them disappear. We've seen hatred for those who don't fit the right gender categories or the right colors of skin or the right religions. And I know I feel fear of what this means, both in the present, for those who are vulnerable, and in the future. So I invite you now to take your art materials and to draw something, create something that represents what you fear. It doesn't have to be a great picture, it could be just a symbol or a scribble. This isn't an art test. There's something you can do to symbolize all of those fears. And there's a chant I invite you to sing along with me. The words go, free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. And some of you might want to continue your drawing as I lead you on a bit of a guided journey. Some of you may want to just put that down, listen to it. Some of you might even want to stand up and move through it, dance through it. If you're the type of person that tends to fall asleep in meditation, sometimes moving through them can really help. Some of you might want to just listen to it like listening to a story. As you take a breath, I'd like you to just breathe in and breathe out. And imagine for a moment that your life is a garden that you tend. If you take a breath and you think about how your life is right now, and you look around at that garden, you may find that there is a lot going on there. Maybe there are some beds that are flourishing and green. Maybe there are some that you never quite got around to weeding. Maybe there's some you thought about planting but never actually did. Maybe there are things you planted and never quite watered. Maybe there are times you felt like working in that garden, but something stopped you. Might have been fear, might have been lack of energy, might have been something else. I'd like you to just take a look around right now and notice if there's a part of that garden that you maybe meant to get to, wanted to get to, started to get to, never quite did. If there is, just take a moment and go over there now. Notice what it feels like to move through your garden, whether you're walking or moving in some other way. As you start to approach, is there something that pushes back on you? Is it hard to get yourself to go there and do that? Sometimes it's almost like there's a drag in the air, like that force when one magnet repels another. Just take a breath and for a moment, let yourself just be there. When you feel that force that stops you, what does it feel like in your body? Is there a place where you feel it? Is there an inner dialogue? Is there an idea in your mind, something you're saying to yourself? And what happens to your energy? And what emotions do you feel? What choices do you feel that you have? And you may want to add some of this to your drawing. And take a breath now. As you think about these things, is there something you can change, something you can shift, something in your body you can do differently? Something in your mind you could tell yourself that's different, that's more supportive, that's more encouraging. Is there a way you can restore your energy? Shift your emotions. Is there a way you can get some help and some support if that's what you need? And take a breath and imagine making that change, making that shift. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. And look back at that part. That part of your garden, and just for a moment imagine what it feels like to be in it, to be working in it, to be doing what it is that you need to do there with these changes, with that different inner dialogue, that different inner voice, with that different energy, with that support. And what might grow there. And when you get a sense of what might grow there, you may want to start a new drawing on a new page. Or you might just find an image in your mind for something you might be hoping to harvest. As you look around now, you look around at that garden, and now I'd like you to look for a part where something is growing and flourishing. Something is really coming to fruition. Something you have seeded has sprouted, is beginning to flower, maybe even to bear fruit. Maybe it's something you've already begun to harvest. Maybe you've been collecting tomatoes or plums. Maybe it's something where the fruit is still on the tree, not quite ripe. But just take a moment, bring yourself over to that part of the garden. Notice what it feels like to be there. To look around and acknowledge what you have done. And I know if you're like me, I often find it a lot harder to acknowledge what I have done and a lot easier to see what I haven't gotten around to yet. But I'll share with you a piece of wisdom that Charles actually said to me. It's that it's very easy to look back and see what you haven't gotten done in a week. But sometimes if you look back and see what you have gotten done in a year, it's a whole lot more encouraging. So I want to encourage you right now to really just take a moment, take in and acknowledge what you have brought to fruition in your life. In this last season, this last year, through these challenging times of COVID and everything else. Because we need to acknowledge that. We need to appreciate our efforts in order to renew our energy and restore our energy. So just take a moment and give yourself a little praise and appreciation for those ideas that you've brought to fruition. For that energy you have mustered up, maybe even sometimes when you didn't quite feel like it, to do something positive, for the ways you've taken anger, frustration, and turned it into creative action. For the love that you've given and received, for the emotions that have infused your work, for the ways you dealt with material reality, with practical problems. For the things you've done to renew your spirit and your community, and to give and to support those around you. And just take a breath and notice how that feels in your body. And maybe what you were telling yourself in your mind. And how your energy feels and your emotion. and what you feel in your spirit. And take a breath now. And look ahead. As you look through this garden, is there some part that's calling to you now that maybe you haven't explored yet or begun to develop yet? Is there something new on your horizon? If you take a breath, as you think about those things that you've harvested, maybe you want to add that to your new drawing as well. But what does it feel like if you can go into that new part of your garden? To explore, to plant, to tend, to nurture. I know for a lot of you, maybe this is not planting time, but here in our climate, this is when we start planting our winter garden. Are there special kinds of seeds? Are there cool weather crops? Are there things that you can begin to plant now? Or is there a way you can begin to prepare the ground now for something you might plant later? And what does it feel like to do that with the energy, with the mindset, with the emotions, the spirit that you bring to what you've already planted and harvested? Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. And take a breath now. Say thank you to this garden. As you look around, as you let go of those disappointments, as you acknowledge the fears, as you see what is hanging on the tree but not quite ripe, just ask yourself, is there something you need to do, to commit to help bring those hopes to fruition? To not be paralyzed by those fears, but to acknowledge that fear is nature's way of getting us activated to do something, to change something. What might that be for you? And take a breath now, say goodbye to your garden, say thank you. And find your way back along the path to where you began, where you started. And let's take 3 deep breaths together, breathing in and out. And in and out. And in and out. Breathing ourselves back as the drum fades away. With memory and knowledge of what we experienced. In our garden. And take a breath now, and you can take your fears. I realized I couldn't drum and draw at the same time. Imagine that. But I've got fears already. So take your fears and you can rip them up. And if you have your cauldron or whatever you have, or you can burn them, put them in. And set them on fire. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Free the heart, let it go. What we reap is what we sow. Now, if you have your drawing of hope, take it, hold it up, and we're going to just sing to energize it. She changes everything she touches, and everything she touches changes. She changes everything she touches, and everything she touches changes. She changes everything she touches, and everything she touches changes. Changes, touches, touches, changes. Changes, touches, touches, changes. She changes, she touches, and everything she touches changes. She changes everything she touches, and everything she touches changes. Ooh. And take in that energy, take it in for what you need to bring your hopes to fruition. And as you do, you might let yourself think about a commitment to one thing that you can do. To manifest what you hope, to make it real. And if you like, you can put that in the chat. If you have a commitment you want us to witness. If you have a hope that you want some support for. But it's time now for us to say our thank yous. So I want to say thank you to Lu, that ancient Celtic god, that solar illumination, that master of many arts and crafts. I want to say thank you to the Reaper, Sometimes you teach us harsh lessons, but you are so much the force that we need right now in my land. That power of consequence, accountability, of justice. Blessed be. Thank you to Spirit for all the gifts of the Spirit that we are harvesting. Thank you to Earth for all the resources and nurturing of the earth that sustain us. Thank you to water for sustaining our lives, for the flow of our emotions. Thank you to fire for the lessons you teach, and the transformation, and for the community, and for our energy. Thank you to air for the ideas, for truth, for vision. And thank you to all of you, to the community. Thank you to Sarah for the beautiful interpretation. It's like a dance watching you. Thank you to Charles for all that you have done to produce this, to make this happen, and all that you do for Earth Activist Training. This ritual today is a benefit for Earth Activist Training. We teach permaculture design with a grounding in spirit and a focus on organizing and activism. I urge you all to go to our website, earthactivisttraining.org. We have a lot of incredible online courses coming up, including a permaculture design certificate course online starting next month. Charles is going to be teaching an amazing course on permaculture infrastructure, on all the energy systems, the amazing things you can build and create to make your life more sustainable. We've got empowering collaborative groups coming up. I also have an in-person course in Sweden for those of you who are in Europe or over there, starting in just about 2 weeks on August 14th for 2 weeks, an incredible island off the southern coast of Sweden where you can get permaculture design certificate. I'm co-teaching with a wonderful teacher, Alfred Decker, and we'll be doing magic and ritual and learning about the practical ways to heal and renew the earth. And we're also going to be doing an in-person one in January in Northern California. And next week on Sunday, Charles and I are going to co-lead a little pop-up one-time social permaculture class on transforming, what do we call it, creating collaborative community and transforming some of the toxic creeds around how we navigate these times with all the disinformation and hate that's being put out there. How do we use some of our understandings of ecology to help us find ways to transform and create beneficial ways of being together? So, thank you all for joining us. It's wonderful to see you. I love seeing the chat, seeing some names I recognize and haven't seen for a while, and some that are new to me. And now think about that web we created, that beautiful dome of light, and just know that the connection remains even as we let those strands just sort of sink back into the earth to offer her a little healing, a little nourishment. Maybe take a little strand and wrap it around yourself for some healing and some protection as we go. So thank you all. And yes, please visit us at earthactivisttraining.org. You can also visit my website at starhawk.org. I have a magical activism online series that's going on now and will continue on. And we've had one meeting, but you could still join and catch up on that. And I've been also doing short meditations on Friday mornings on Instagram at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And I'm going to hopefully be able to continue even as I'm traveling in August. And again, this is a benefit for Earth Activist Training. You can go to our webpage and donate. I know all of you donated something, and we appreciate it so much. But we offer diversity scholarships for people of color and Indigenous folks, and have done a lot to make these tools and skills available to people on the front lines of struggle. And we can always use more support for that. Basically, we can use as much as we can get to help with that work. So thank you so much. And I think we should end now and give our wonderful interpreter a chance to rest those beautiful hands. So thank you all. And have a beautiful day, night, week, season. Charles, you have any music to play us out with?
Yes, I do.
Ready? Mm-hmm. 1, 2.
Everything's connected to everything. Everything's connected to everything. Darling, everything's connected to everything. Everything else. Everything else. Every plant in the garden has more than one purpose. It exists for itself, yet it longs to be of service. And every gift is offered to all that wants, and every need is satisfied by several plants. All life is entangled in a beautiful loop. Everything is nutrient, and everything is food. Oh, everything's connected to everything. Oh, everything's connected to everything. Everything's connected to everything. Oh, everything else. I said everything's connected to everything. Oh, everything's connected to everything, darling. Everything's connected to everything. Oh, everything else. Oh, everything else. Oh, everything else. Everything else. Everything else. Everything else. It's all connected. Everything else. It's all connected. It's all, yeah, everything's connected. Everything else. Oh, everything's connected to everything.